Hey guys, we are doing predictions for UFC Melbourne, Whittaker versus Brunson. Follow me on Twitter. My link is in the description at MMA Breakdown 0. I've already done my prediction videos for the two events taking place before this one. Fight Night Belfast, Hall versus Musashi 2, as well as Fight Night Sao Paulo, Bader versus Nogueira 2. And hopefully by the time this video is up, I will also have done my predictions for the following event, Tough 24 finale, and that will be linked in the description as well if I've already done that video, so look out for that. But UFC Melbourne, not such a hot fight card on paper, but I've seen worse. I've seen worse international fight night cards, so not too bad, but not. I don't have a lot of enthusiasm for it either. But anyways, first fight at light heavyweight: Tyson Pedro versus Khalil Roundtree. Pedro is making his UFC debut. I haven't seen any tape on him. Khalil Roundtree, a very athletic and explosive fighter, and we saw in his couple of wins on Tough that when he's able to overwhelm his opponent with volume and athleticism, he looks really good and dangerous. But he did lose in the house to Corey Hendricks, where his opponent was able to match his size. He was outstriking Hendricks, but got taken down and subbed out pretty easily. And then in the finale fight, he lost to Andrew Sanchez, where again, he was a smaller fighter there, and Sanchez was able to control him in the clinch and just outsize him and, use his physical advantage. So I think Roundtree is small for the weight class, and I'm really surprised that he's still fighting at light heavyweight, because I think Andrew Sanchez, after he won the fight, said that he was going to drop to middleweight, and I think, if I remember correctly, said he might even drop to welterweight. So I don't know how well it's going to work out for Roundtree at light heavyweight. And again, I haven't seen any tape on Pedro, but Roundtree, like I said, can be really effective with his striking when he does have that athletic and explosive advantage over his opponent. All right, at women's strawweight, Seohee Ham versus Danielle Taylor. I'm going to go with Ham here. She's just fought the better fighters. Danielle Taylor was in that really heavily criticized fight after the fact against, what was her name? Marina Morosh, where I think Morosh set the record for most strikes missed in a fight. But Seohee Ham, never looks really great, but was in there with Joanne Calderwood, went the distance. She probably should have won her last fight against Beck Rawlings, and against Courtney Casey. She got the win after having a slow start, and Casey's doing great right now. And Danielle Taylor, aside from landing, I think one big shot, one memorable shot, the entire fight against Morosh, really didn't show much. So I have to go with Ham here. I'm going to take her to win a decision. I think she should just be the more skilled striker and more skilled overall mixed martial artist. All right, at flyweight, Yao Zakai versus newcomer Janelle Lauso. Just looking up Zakai's record here to refresh my memory. But his opponent is another newcomer, so I'm not going to make a pick. But Zakai lost his last fight against Freddie Serrano about a year ago. Got slammed and broke his arm. Had a split decision win over Nolan Tickman in an extremely uneventful fight. And then against Royston Wee, lost the split decision, but that was the fight where I thought he got robbed and definitely should have won. I thought he dominated Wee. But yeah, he does not strike me as a high-level fighter. That Nolan Tickman fight was terrible. You can go watch it on Fight Pass. He took Wee's back several times and was wailing on him, but Wee's a very low-level fighter, so not gonna make a pick here anyways. But I don't really think much of Zakai. All right, next fight at featherweight. This is a matchup I'm looking forward to. Dan Hooker versus Jason Knight. Jason Knight, I thought even in his debut loss to Kawajiri, he looked really impressive. Showed a pretty good defensive guard. Was really tying up Kawajiri off of his back and really giving him fits, making him fight to remain in top control. And then in his follow-up fight against Jim Ehlers, showed a really effective striking game, showed an effective jab. Not a technical striker, but definitely pushed the pace and just let his hands go and pretty much outworked and had no problem just picking apart Ehlers and connecting with shots throughout the whole fight. I was pretty impressed by it, but I have to go with Hooker here. I think he's just a higher level fighter. We saw him submit Mark Ediva, who's probably a more technical fighter than Jason Knight. He's been in there with vets like Hatsu Hioki, and even though he was getting outpointed in that fight, was able to land the head kick knockout late, went 3 rounds with Yair Rodriguez. Did get dominated, also got dominated by Maximo Blanco, but went 3 rounds with him, and then had that dominant finish over Ian Entwistle in his debut. So I'm definitely going to go with Hooker here. I think Jason Knight is tough, really scrappy striking game, but Hooker can hit those submissions. He's really long and lanky. He's shown power. He's really durable and tough. And just been in there with better guys and has a lot more UFC experience up to this point than Jason Knight. So I'm going to go with Hooker. And I'm going to say finish. I don't know if TKO or submission, but I'll say he gets the finish in the second round. All right, at flyweight, Ben Nguyen versus Gian Herrera. This is another interesting matchup. I'm going to take Newwin here. I think he just puts his game together better than Herrera. Herrera is really good off of his back, kind of like I was saying about Jason Knight. In his debut against Ray Borg, spent almost the entire fight on his back, but had a really active guard and really made Borg defend and work from top position because of his guard, but didn't really get much done besides that, and couldn't keep from being taken down. And then against Joby Sanchez, he was really getting outstruck on the feet before he finally turned it up, turned it around, found his rhythm, and was able to catch Sanchez and put him away. And then against Ali Bagotinov, was getting outclassed. I think he got dropped and was getting controlled on the ground, but by the third round had rallied back and locked in that arm triangle choke from bottom, and had it was pretty tight, but didn't get it, lost the fight. So while Herrera looks good at moments, he looks good in certain facets of the game. I just don't think he hasn't put his game together as well as Ben Nguyen. We've seen Ben Nguyen, get a good knockout over Skillich. He took down Benoit, took his back, and got the submission on him. Did get badly dominated by Louis Smolka, both on the feet and on the ground. Really ate some devastating ground and pound in that fight. But I still think Newwin, transitions better from striking to wrestling. Herrera's only good off of his back, and that's not really a trustworthy, grappling game. Nguyen, we've seen him, take the back and get mount. So I'm going to take Nguyen here. I think he probably gets a submission. I think the fight will end up on the ground, and Nguyen is going to be the one on top and probably lock up a submission. So I'm taking Nguyen by sub. At welterweight, Richard Walsh versus Jonathan Meunier. This is a weird fight because Meunier, we don't really know much about him at the UFC level. Fought Colby Covington and got dominated. Got out-wrestled pretty dominantly and got submitted in the third round. I think he did, do a bit of a better job than Max Griffin did or some other fighters have done against Covington. Did make Covington fight for some of those takedowns early in the fight. And losing to Covington, that's not really a knock on him. I mean, Covington is one of the most dominant wrestlers in the UFC, and he's a beast. Richard Walsh, I don't trust his game. He has only beaten. He only has I think one win in the UFC, and that was against a fellow tough Nations castmate in his debut fight. Actually 2 wins. He beat Steve Kennedy, but he was not looking good in that fight. Early on, he got taken down, had his back taken. And, other than those couple of wins, and again, the one against Steve Kennedy, he was really getting out-grappled early on. He just has not done well. Probably should have won the fight against Kichi Kunimoto, but, couldn't keep Kunimoto off of his legs and wound up losing the decision. Joban made quick work of him. And he's just a bruiser, really heavily muscled guy, and I feel like his strikes and his movement come very labored at his weight class, and he's really at a pretty big speed disadvantage in all of his fights. So I don't really know much about Meunier's game. I haven't seen any of his fights pre-UFC, but I just don't really trust Walsh. And then he lost to Viscardi Andrade in his last fight, lost a decision. So the guy's lost to bad competition. He's even the fights where he was competitive, like Kunimoto, and even the fight that he probably should have lost or was doing poorly in early Steve Kennedy fight. Both those fights were not against good competition. So I'm going to take Meunier. I'm just not feeling Richard Walsh. Has not been impressive. Has not done well against good competition. So I'm going to go with the younger fighter here. I may change my pick if I hear someone else give a good reason why Walsh should win this fight. But I am going to take Meunier. All right, lightweight Damian Brown versus John Tuck. This is an interesting fight. Both guys have power. Damian Brown showed that his last win over Cesar Arzamendia from Tough Latin America. He was getting outstruck early on, but then pretty quickly, connected on his shots and knocked out Arzamendia in his debut against Alan Patrick. It was pretty surprising that he was able to at least be semi-competitive with him. He hit his takedown at one point and had locked up a Kimura from his back, even against a much bigger, more athletic fighter in Patrick. But John Tuck, I think, is just more well-rounded. and he also has power, so I think he'll be able to bang it out against Brown. Against Tai Hyun Bang, he dropped him and then submitted him on the ground. Against Jake Lindsay, dominated him, took him down, took his back, and finished him with those heel kicks to the body from his back. I think Tuck has a more well-rounded game on the feet. I think he has just as much power, and he's a pretty solid striker. Not very technical, not a big brawler, but just kind of a solid striker. Did lose his last fight to Josh Emmett, but I'm going to take John Tuck here, and I think I'm going to take him. I think he'll probably hurt Brown on the feet. Brown's going to try to slug it out, and then I think Tuck will follow up with a submission on the ground. So taking Tuck by submission. Next at middleweight, Dan Kelly versus Chris Camozzi. This is, other than the main event, this is the fight I'm most looking forward to. I really like this matchup, and I think the matchup really favors Kelly. Camozzi is not a good grappler, and not only is he not a good grappler, he's pretty deficient in grappling. Got dominated by Talis Leites in his last fight. Leites rode his back standing, and I think even got the choke while they were still on the feet. But even, previous fights, and, Talis Leites is a really talented guy, and so is Jacare, who made quick work of Camozzi twice. But even fights, earlier in his career, Bruno Santos, he was smothered and dominated by, and Nick Catone, roughhoused this guy, was able to get takedowns and beat him up from top, and Camozzi kind of won on a lucky cut. So Camozzi's always struggled with grappling, and on the feet, Camozzi will have the reach advantage, and I think he has made improvements in his striking. I think he looked really good in his fight 2 fights ago against Vitor Miranda. Expected him to lose that fight, but he was able to use his reach really well and pick apart Miranda and hit a lot of nice leg trip takedowns in that fight. But Kelly is good at closing the distance. Watch the Luke Zachridge fight to see that. Can close the distance well with his strikes. The Steve Montgomery fight, and then he's an Olympic judoka, and he kind of looks like an old man out there. He doesn't look very athletic, and wears that knee sleeve, but the guy is strong and dominant on the ground. Honestly, I think Antonio Carlos Jr. was a tougher test for him, a more dangerous fighter than Camozzi, and he had his back. Kelly should have been out of there in that first round. He survived that, came back to hurt much younger fighter on the feet, and finished him off with ground and pound. He was dominant against Montgomery with his judo. He can hit takedowns from the clinch. I think Camozzi is going to be playing that leg trip game, and Kelly, being the judoka, will have the advantage there, and also the Zachridge fight. Closed the distance with his striking and took him down and dominated him positionally and submitted him with the Kimura. So I think Dan Kelly should have the big grappling advantage, where Camozzi has really struggled in the past. And then on the feet, I think Kelly's good enough to close the distance, at least to tie up with Camozzi, get him in the clinch, get close enough to work for takedowns. Maybe not outstrike Camozzi if he's not able to get him down, but I don't really see why he won't be able to get Camozzi down. So I like Kelly. I think I'm going to take him by TKO here. I think Camozzi's going to get stuck on the bottom, and Kelly's got pretty good control and ground and pound. So I'm going to take him by TKO. All right, at featherweight, Yusuke Kasuya versus newcomer Alex Volkanovski. Another newcomer, so I'm not going to make a pick for this fight. By the way, I know some people don't like it when I don't make picks, and because I do eventually make picks for all the fights on UFC Fantasy, and that's because I don't watch other people's analysis on the fights before I make this video. I will update my picks in the description once I decide who I'm going to take on these fights, but right now I just can't give you anything on these newcomers. But Yusuke Kasuya, I don't really remember his first fight against Nick Hein. It was a typical Nick Hein fight. I just remember Nick Hein having the advantage on the feet, kind of a slow fight, and just picking his shots and winning kind of an uneventful decision. So pretty forgettable performance by Kasuya. And moving on to welterweight Kyle Noke versus Omari Akhmedov. I really like Noke here. I think he can follow a similar game plan to what Zaleski dos Santos did to Akhmedov in his last fight. Play an outside kicking game, keep the distance, stuff takedowns. We know that Noke has good kicks and can land a shot out of nowhere that will finish you, like he did to Peter Sabata, and did a good job of maintaining distance and picking apart what's the guy's name? Keita Nakamura in his last fight before getting hurt with a head kick and then getting his back taken and finished on the ground. Noke is not a consistent fighter, though. That Alex Morono fight I thought was pretty bad. The Jonathan Webb fight he should have lost, but Omari Akhmedov has not looked good either. Not much to offer Zaleski dos Santos. Did well against Moraes and was close to winning a decision there before just getting knocked out. I think it was a knee or just like a last minute Hail Mary shot by Moraes in the third round that really put him out. So yeah, Noke should just be the more technical striker. I think he should be able to keep distance. Noke has been out-wrestled in the past before, but by Patrick Cote and even Andrew Craig, but I don't think Akhmedov is such a great wrestler that he's going to dominate Noke with the wrestling. So yeah, I like Noke to outstrike him from range and win a decision. All right, at lightweight, co-main event, Jake Matthews versus Andrew Holbrook. I'm taking Jake Matthews pretty confidently here. Had a pretty surprising loss in his last fight to Kevin Lee. And has struggled before that. Akbar Areola hurt him with a head kick and almost finished him off with ground and pound after that, but Matthews came back. Holbrook he's not an athletic fighter, he's not a dangerous fighter. Joaquim Silva in his last fight just connected with a huge shot right out of the gate that dropped him and followed up and quickly put him away. And even against Ramsey Nijam, was not dominant. I didn't even think that he won the decision. Attempted a few front headlock chokes and did well in some scrambles, but other than that, it was not. I didn't think there was anything really that impressive about his game. So yeah, Holbrook is not the wrestler or the athlete that Kevin Lee is. Matthews is pretty scrappy. He's a tough striker, and I think has been developing pretty well technically. Both with his striking and it seems to be able to hit takedowns more easily, fight to fight. Was hitting some good takedowns on James Vick before he got submitted. And then on top, the guy is just jacked for the weight class. He's very physically strong and from top position really dominates with ground and pound and can open up a submission and finish it. He dominated Akbar Areola once he got on top. Got a submission against who was that jiu-jitsu fighter he faced? Was it Wagner Hocha? I think so. But yeah, the guy is really dominant on top, and that's where I think he will win this fight. So I'm going to take Jake Matthews by, I'm going to say, submission. All right. And then the main event at middleweight, Robert Whittaker versus Derek Brunson. This is a good matchup. Whittaker should be the better striker. I think should have a speed advantage. I think he's a better combination striker. Just more technical, and he can mix in his kicks with his strikes. But Brunson, while he's kind of your prototypical wrestle boxer, he's not a bad striker himself. Proved that in his last fight against Hall. He was able to pressure him, connect early, get that early knockout, and probably can match Whittaker on power. If Brunson connects, I think he could, he definitely has the power to put out Whittaker. And Whittaker takes damage and has been dropped several times before by not very good strikers, even poor strikers. Was dropped by Court McGee. I think was dropped in the Colton Smith fight against Clint Hester. That was a back and forth brawl, took a lot of shots and took damage before he got the finish. And in the Hall fight, he slowed down, and Hall was able to open him up a bit in that third round. And even Rafael Natal, Whittaker pretty much dominated that fight, but Natal was able to do some damage with the leg kick. So Whittaker can be hit, he can be dropped, usually recovers. And then Stephen Thompson completely tooled him and put him out. Brunson has the power, but I don't think he is a technical or just skilled enough striker to box with Whittaker for 5 rounds. I don't know whose cardio will hold out. Neither guy's really shown to lack cardio, but this is the first 5-round fight for both guys in the UFC. Like I said, Whittaker did slow down a bit against Hall in the 3rd round. Brunson was was right there with Yoel Romero until the 3rd round where he got finished. So I don't know who's going to have the cardio advantage. For Brunson to win, I think he's going to have to not just go out there and brawl. Like I said, Whittaker, I think, was just more technical and will probably be able to find openings and I think knock out Brunson. If Brunson gets really reckless and just wants to trade with him like he did against Sam Alvey, I think that definitely will not work for Brunson. But if Brunson is able to hit that takedown and out-wrestle Whittaker, give him something else to think about other than just big haymakers on the feet, then I think it could be a really interesting fight. We still haven't seen Whittaker put on his back much, if at all, or even have to fight off takedowns from a strong wrestler. This is, other than Colton Smith, who's not a high-level MMA fighter, but a strong wrestler, this is the first real-deal wrestler that Whittaker will have faced in the UFC. So I think Brunson is good enough on the feet to survive and not brawl, not chase the knockout against Whittaker, but I think he can survive on the feet. Like I said, in the Romero fight was survived for 2.5 rounds. But he's going to have to hit those takedowns to have a chance to win, I think. And Whittaker, while we haven't really seen him tested on the ground, he did have moments where he controlled Hall on the ground. And I don't expect him to be, so lacking in the takedown defense department that he's just going to get out wrestled for 5 rounds. So I'm going to take Whittaker here. I think if Brunson fights smart, Whittaker will win the decision. If Brunson really looks to get the finish and get the knockout, then I think Whittaker can capitalize on that. So I'm taking Whittaker to win a decision. But this could be a really competitive fight. Like I said, especially if Brunson is able to establish that takedown, make him fight off of his back for a while. But Brunson does have the power to knock out Whittaker, who's been hittable. So, that is a possibility. I just think it's more likely that Whittaker will either counter Brunson if he gets really aggressive or just technically outstrike him for 5 rounds. So, yeah, taking Whittaker to win a 5-round decision. All right, guys, those are my predictions for UFC Melbourne. Thank you for watching. Again, follow me on Twitter at MMA Breakdown 0. Link is in the description, and also check the description for links to my prediction videos for Hall versus Mousasi 2, Bader versus Nogueira 2, and Tough 24 finale. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time. Bye.